Hello and welcome to the tutorial. So what this is going to be covering is making sure that when we press shift we can't unshift while we are underneath geometry, because then we get stuck. So I just made this method here that's blueprint callable. Category is any character functions. It returns a boolean, sphere trace single from location, f vector location, direction, the float range, float radius bool if we want to draw the debug or not, and the f hit result, which is the hit result. And this is any character.h. In the CPP file you need to include kismets /kismet system library.h. And then I just wrote this code right here, and I'm going to go over and change one thing. So the end location is the same as the previous, which is the direction times the range plus the location. The T array of actors to ignore, we basically just add this actor that's ray tracing, and then boolean is successful is if the sphere trace hits something. So we can return is successful right here. And basically what we're going to do is we sphere trace from this world, we put the location and the radius, and in this trace channel we actually want to change that to u engine types convert to trace type, and this is acc underscore visibility. And this will basically make it so that we can use the visibility trace channel for the sphere trace. And then we put false, we don't want to trace complex. We add this actor to ignore, and then if the draw debug is ticked to true, then we will draw for a duration, otherwise we will draw none. And then you can fill out these draw stuff. I'm going to keep them all default. And that's basically sphere tracing. So if we go to the character, all we can do is on the int or the crouch one that we had on released, we can do sphere trace, and we need to compile our code first before we can access that function. So we need to sphere trace from, and we need to trace from location. Not sure why this is not showing up. I will close the blueprints and reopen a character. Not sure why that's not working. Let's see what we did wrong. So if we go up here, we have a line trace, so blueprint callable. It's also a U function that's blueprint callable. Not sure why this is doing this. I will quickly pause the video and figure out why. Okay, I figured out the issue. I just had to build from Visual Studio. So if we type in functions, we can see character functions. Here's sphere trace. So we will put that in released. So when we release the crouch input and then we want to sphere trace, keep in mind this is going to be converted to C++. This functionality of this, I'm just doing it in blueprints to visualize. So we are going to do it from the camera's location. So get the world location. The direction is not going to be from the camera, it's going to be the capsule component get up vector. For right now, the range is just going to be 250, and then the radius is going to be the capsule component's radius, and we're just going to multiply that by 2. And that's the radius, and we want to draw the debug for now. So when I press unshift, you can see it draws this capsule component. So we want to actually change the start location. It's actually going to be the up vector times a certain height. So basically in here, we had the end location is equal to this. That's also where we actually want the start location. So if we recompile this, you can see it makes the thing at the top, and it should allow us to unshift, but unfortunately because we did this in blueprints, it's sort of overriding that method. So all we can do is I'll just make an event queue. So when we press the Q key, it will line trace this. So press Q and you can see it does it above us. That's a bit too high. For the range, I'm going to switch it to 125. And now you can see it's above our head, still a bit too high, so we can switch it to 120 or 100. You can see that's almost right, so let's just do the position. So we'll add a new scene component, and this scene component is going to be the sphere trace location. And from this location, that's where we're going to do it in world space. So get location, and that's where we want to start. So we're going to end all of this. So we're going to not put the end location in here in C++, we're going to put a normal location in. And when we press Q, you can see we get this circle being drawn. And we need to move the sphere trace location up to where the camera is. And now you can see it draws this capsule component to us. So we're actually going to add one more variable, which is the end location f vector, to this sphere trace. So we will do f vector end location. We're also going to add that in here. And this is so that we can take this out, and then we don't need the range. So we can get rid of this range and direction, as that's going to be calculated not here in this class. So now that we have this, we can recompile, and it's going to give us an error in the blueprints, but that's fine. So if we go to blueprints, there's an error. So once the end location, which is just going to be this one here as well, and any direction, we don't need the direction anymore. And then range, we don't need range. So we will quickly re-input this function. In our character functions, right here. So when we press the start location and end location, radius, and then we want to draw debug. So when we press Q, you can see it draws this right here, and then you can move it up to your liking. So I'm going to move this sphere trace location up a little bit, like so. And now you can see it's there. So now what we need to do is actually make that sphere trace location in C++. I'm going to go to the character, and in the default public here up at the top, I'm just going to add a new public section that's going to be like normal U property stuff. So it's going to be this component. So in the character settings, going to be a class of uScene component, sphere trace component. We'll set that equal to null pointer from default. And up at the top, we need to include it. So we'll include components / sphere component, or scene component, sorry. There we go. And before we compile this, I'm just going to delete this component from here, and it's going to just do the world location from this target. So we're going to do sphere component is equal to create default sub-object of a uScene component. The text is going to be the sphere trace component, because we're using that for sphere tracing. And then we want to set the relative location. So if we go into our blueprints here, the camera was 50 upwards. So if we look at this pickup location, and this is not compiling, we will just remove this for now. So if we look at the pickup location on the Z value, if we go up to the top, that's about 90. So I will keep that as where that was for the pickup location, and I'm going to make this at 90. So this is going to be an F vector of 0 and a 90. And before we do that, we're going to set up the attachment, and the attachment is going just to be the root component. So when we compile this, we'll close the character class, we will compile. And if this hot reload does not work, just go to Visual Studio, click Build Solution like so, and it will also do it in Unreal Engine. So we will open this, we have the sphere trace component, and we should be able to access it, but it's not allowing us to, but that's okay. But we did set up the position correctly. We could have also done this as an arrow component so that we can see where it is, but that's fine. So we will drag this in here, get the location, and this is the world location, that's for the both of them. And when we click play, you can see it draws this right here. So now we need to add the checks. So when we raise trace or line trace with the sphere. If this is true, we don't want to allow the player to unshift. Because right now, if I go right here, and I shift and I press Q, you can see it turns green. That means it hit something, meaning we should not be allowed to unpress the shift key or uncrouch. So in C++, what we're going to do is when we want to stop crouching, we need to have a method can stop crouching or check can stop crouching. So any private under the crouching, we're just going to have a bool can stop crouching, and we will implement this. So in here, we are going to have an f-vector start location, and that's going to be equal to the component we just created, so the sphere trace component, get component location. And in C++, component location is the world location, and Blueprint's world location is the same as component location in C++. So f-vector end location going to be equal to the sphere trace component, or we can just put it easy, the start location. So now we want to return we want to return the opposite of the sphere trace from location. So we have the start location and the end location. The radius is going to the get capsule component dot radius, get capsule radius, and then we will do times 2.0f. And then draw debug, sure, we will draw debug to check everything, and that should be all that we need. And we need to pass any hit result. But first we already included the capsule component, so I'm not sure why this is giving us an error. .get, not set. Get capsule radius. Not sure why there's not a get scale, it's get scaled capsule radius. We need to pass in an f hit result also, because this is in C++, not Blueprints. And that should be everything. So now we can check if we are not pressing this. So when we uncrouch right here, if we cannot crouch, so if not can stop crouching, return, and then it's not going to reverse that. So in C++, let's compile. There's going to be one glitch, and I will show you how to fix that. Compiled successfully. You can see we can uncrouch, but if I try and uncrouch here, it's not doing, and now I'm stuck and I have to repress. So what we're going to do is make a new boolean. So we already have is crouching. We're going to make a new one, bool, and this is private, so we're going to name it can or check can stop crouching, and this is automatically equal to false. And when we can't stop crouching, we are going to do check can stop crouching is equal to true, so we want to check continuously if we can stop crouching, and then we want to return. Now in a tick, if check can stop crouching, and then if can stop crouching, meaning we can stop, we basically want to do this right here, and then right after it we want to set check can stop crouching to true, so we do check can stop crouching is equal to false actually. So now when we compile this, and we click play, you can see it works. It doesn't uncrouch for us, and immediately when we end it uncrouches. You can see it does a couple checks. We could do like a delay like 0.5, but you can see it works until we're under, and you can change this delay to whatever you want. That's how you make a custom crouch function in C++ that does not just instantly move your character down, it sort of interpolates nicely and smoothly.